Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziel.
Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Nick, thanks for having me on, brother. Excited to be here.
I can't wait to get some laughter. I love your podcast, and one of the things that I look forward to in every episode is hearing that infectious laugh that is Andrew.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Quick side story for my listeners, but one time I was going to meet Andrew, and I was listening to his podcast, and I happened to drive by the playground maker that he was talking to on that exact episode. So it's always fun to kind of see the thing in real action, right?
Yeah, I know that's too wild, right? To be like, oh wow, that's the business that was just, oh, okay.
Yeah. So but one of the reasons I wanted to kind of have you on the show, Andrew, is because you are an avid networker, and you're also super involved with the community and making a positive impact, a terrific impact, which is like, one of the big things about this show is I want to uplift people that are doing great things. And I have trouble keeping track of all the great things that you're doing. So why don't you
Same
tell...
here, Nick.
Exactly. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got involved with some of the things that you're doing?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll give you the truncated story. So I've been on a winding road to get to where I am, and I'm very blessed by the journey I've been on, and fortunate. I've got a wife and two daughters. They are, they keep me grounded and keep me excited. And professionally, I work at a chamber of commerce. I also do coaching / speaking and facilitation on the side.
Mhm.
That's kind of a passion project, you could say. I have a blast doing that. And then I guess I have a lot of passion projects. Also have a podcast that I do. I've also written a couple books, and currently I'm working with the Alzheimer's Association to help with their walk in the Finger Lakes area. I also, well, there's one other thing I do. Oh,
That
I work with
there's
my buddy Ben on
Yeah.
Our GrowGetters networking group. So
Yeah, that's an
yeah.
excellent network.
So
I
yeah,
love it.
it's a long list, and there's probably more I forgot, but yeah, each of those things kind of does a little something for me, right? They kind of scratch a different itch as far as my professional passion and excitement.
Yeah. I mean, and what I like is that you're everywhere, and you're doing all these things, and you love to bring people along for the ride. And you're one of those infectious learners too. So, um, everything that you do seems to have some sort of learning component, like making lives better, and your approach to your LinkedIn posts is just like sharing that knowledge openly. You could really have an Andrew University of your own.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure, for sure. So like, how did you kind of get started, right? A lot of people, do one or two of the things that you do. Was it something that, happened instantly, where you were involved with all of these things, or was it a
No,
slow growth over
like
time to...
like many things, it's just been a slow build. So if we look back in time to, was it 2013? I'd just been fired from my first job out of college and was drinking very heavily, was in a very dark place, and eventually transitioned out of that spot, got physically in shape in my new career, which was fitness. And with that, started getting the help that I needed to work through a lot of my personal internal challenges. And plenty of counseling, plenty of group therapy, plenty of everything.
Mhm.
And for me, that was the start of really diving into learning, really understanding how it could impact and change my life.
Mhm.
And then being a person that has absorbed and has learned, I can't help but share that, right?
Right.
But that sharing component has also been a slow build.
Mhm.
I remember when I was first going to some group therapy sessions in 12-step groups, and I'd share on Well, I started off by sharing basically nothing because what people were saying was just crazy. I'm like, you don't say that stuff out loud, like, hey, I'm Ted and this is all my problems. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, okay, man. But as I continued to go to those, I started getting to a place where I actually really appreciated that level of honesty and vulnerability. And I started recognizing that as people were sharing openly with an anonymous group where people, they're just there to support and encourage. And really, at the end of the day, they don't really know you. Right. So if you say
Mhm.
something horrible about yourself, it's not like they're going to go telling everybody. So at the same time, it was a chance to kind of spread my wings a little bit. And through sharing, I found that I got to grow again. Not only did I
Mhm.
grow from learning, I grew from sharing, from being vulnerable, from being real, and just letting things out. And I found that the more I let some of the internal pain and troubles and challenges out of me, the better I felt, the better I did, and the more people connected with me. I recognized that as I shared authentically, people resonated with so many people. For example,
Right.
my wife and I went through 3 miscarriages a couple years ago. It was over the course of a year, just one after another. And the first one was hard, but in a very growth mindset kind of a spot. I'm like, we're going to get through this. We're going to be okay. We had a second one a few months later, and then many months later than that, we had a third one. And so they all started kind of building, and it really kind of caught me off guard, how intense and how sad that time in my
Mhm.
life was. And what I did though was I started to just share on how hard that was. I started putting out there the challenges that I was going through. And I had a lot of people reach out and connect with me because of that. And so some of the bigger lessons that I've learned have been around sharing is as I have absorbed, as I have gone through hardship and pain and challenges, but also as I've gotten excited and thrilled and pumped up, all of that gets even better when I get
Right.
to share it in a vulnerable and authentic sense. And so I feel like I get to do that when I write. I get to do that when I create a podcast with somebody. I get to do that when I have a conversation that goes deeper than, hey, how's the weather? Right. So those type of conversations, those type of sharing, that to me is that's the pinnacle, right? Is
Right.
being able to show up and be that and be open like that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that because, I can imagine going through what you and your wife went through, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. That does sound like a very hard situation to be in multiple times.
Yeah.
So I'll be thinking about you with that too.
Thank you,
So
man.
yeah,
So
but
for us in that time, one of the things that was wonderful was we had a daughter. So we had our daughter. We decided actually we were going to get pregnant. We're like, okay, let's start trying. We immediately got pregnant, and I was like, oh, having kids, this
yeah,
whole thing's easy, and it certainly is not. Right? There's
right,
there's a large number of people out there that experience a lot of challenges when
yeah,
it comes to pregnancy.
yeah,
So for us, that was a huge wake up call. But
yeah,
also, at the same time, as we're going through that hardship, we still got to snuggle with that
yeah,
little girl.
yeah. No, I can understand. I can understand that having 4 kids of my own.
Yeah.
Being surviving as a family and solidarity and all that's is wonderful. But um, you know, I will say, do you find it challenging at any point to be so open and sharing? I'm thinking of fairly recent moment in LinkedIn where someone shared in a position of authority about letting people go, right? And that thing blew up and sort of in that person's face, right?
Hmm.
um, are you ever worried about something like that happening, or um, I guess what is your mindset around like how much is okay to share, right?
Yeah, no, that's really important is for me, I understand that as I create and as I put stuff out there, not everything's going to resonate with everybody, right? So far,
Mhm.
I haven't created anything that has been extraordinarily controversial yet. And I think where that CEO ran into a lot of trouble was it was a very difficult time, certainly
Sure.
for him, and he was experiencing that difficult time in his own self. And I think where people felt troubled by that was he hadn't quite gotten out of his own pain yet and stepped into other people's pain yet.
Right.
And I think that's where he was getting a lot of flack. But so for him, he was very early in the processing phase, and he shared that early processing, and he got a ton of flack for it. So
Right.
better or for worse, I think it's important that, especially when it's extremely emotional, that processing be done offline. That be done somewhere, either with a professional, a spouse, or just with time, right? Because I've seen a lot of people, when they're in an extremely emotional state, make really bad decisions. When someone gets really upset, when someone gets really sad, when someone gets really scared or really angry, people have these outsized reactions, and then you put something out there that gets past your grip. You can't pull it back in anymore. Other people have grabbed onto it, and they're taking it around and they're showing it to everybody else. So it's important that the most raw, the most brutal stuff, for me personally, I feel like I need to process that before I can open up about it.
Sure.
In an open forum, right? In a closed forum, right? Like a church group, or with my close friends, or with family. You know what I mean? I'm more than happy to process, right? To be super, super open, and risk saying something dumb or offensive. But at the same time, that same type of risk, while it can be beautiful to share in an extremely public way some of the most raw challenges, you do also run a risk, right? You do also run the risk of that rawness starting to compound now, because now you've either offended or hurt or conveyed the wrong message. So I think there's definitely a balance that needs to be struck when it comes to vulnerability, when it comes to an audience.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. And and unfortunately in this day and age, things can be taken, or, out of context too, right? So there's always that risk. And that you can't really control as much, right? People reacting to something that isn't really there. But fortunately you haven't had that experience. And I don't
Not
think you
yet.
ever
I think
will,
if I create long enough, it'll probably happen for me too.
Yeah.
They'll come with the pitchforks. I think anybody that takes a stand on something is going to take a fall for something at the same time, right? There's going to be something that happens, and that's, you accept the risk. I heard a fantastic quote, and originally it came from Darren Hardy, and it was probably someone even older and wiser than him who picked it up from. But the concept is the pendulum of life. Is often we want the highs of life. We want those beautiful moments. We want that high achievement. We want that great feeling of having done something important, or made X amount of dollars, or, gone for that major trophy or tournament or award. But where a lot of people fall short on that is they're afraid of what can happen when the pendulum swings back the other way.
Right.
Right. And I look at it with kids, right? If I have a child, there is a risk with that child, right? That child could get cancer, right? My child could end up in a really bad and unfortunate situation. And so that's the dark side of that pendulum. I think a lot of people live their lives in such a way where they don't want that dark side of the pendulum to come and get them. And so they don't let that pendulum open up and swing big towards the good. They swing a little bit towards the good because they don't want to risk swinging way too far back towards the bad. And so that's kind of the way that I try to live is I'm just going to go all the way open, right? I'm going to push towards that good side of that pendulum, understanding that by doing that, I do open myself up to extreme heartache and heartbreak at the same time.
Right. Yeah. The good with the bad, and honestly, when, using your analogy, if you do always kind of swing just a little bit, you're always sort of in the dark, right? Yeah. And so, that's really great advice. And, one of our mutual contacts or mutual friends, Ben Albert, right? You're working with him on a new project, and Ben's a former, show guest here for TST as well, and very similar kind of person in regards to his networking approach and approach to business as you, if you don't mind me saying so.
Thank you.
And recently, I feel like everywhere I go, I run into Ben. So I was meeting with another person at a whatchamacallit, Panera, right? And there's Ben. And we both always seem to, I always have to go, is that really Ben?
Is that for real? Is that him?
Is that really him? Because we're, used to meeting on Zoom, and I'm like, Ben's a fairly, specific looking gentleman, right?
Yeah.
But it's happened, I think, 3 times now. A brewery, a coffee shop, or whatever. Um, so, but in any event, um, I know that you guys are working together, and I think it's a really cool project. And I would love to spend a little time talking more about Grow Getters.
Yes. So Ben and I got, like all good networking contacts, introduced through a friend of a friend. We'd actually, I think, both had the same person on our show.
Mhm.
And so I have a show, Ben has a show, and we had both had this lady, Kristen Fragnoli, on each of our podcasts. And so after my podcast, a couple weeks later, we just kind of sat down for coffee just to kind of catch up, see how we could help each other. And she mentioned, I want to introduce you to my friend Ben because you guys are a lot alike.
Mhm.
I think you guys would hit it off. And she nailed it, right?
Yeah.
Ben and I, from the moment we started hanging out, have been extremely fast friends. So, he and I did what he calls the CAN system. I got to try to remember it. Create and network. Content, create, and network. So the idea there is co-create something, build something together,
Mhm.
and get to know each other at the same time. And so podcasts are a great opportunity for that. So I had him on my show, then he had me on his show, and then I had him on my show again.
Yeah.
We just had such a blast doing it. So we've kind of slowly just started circling more and more like, what can we do together? What can we build together? What can we create together?
Sure.
Because this whole collaborating thing has been a blast. We work very, very well together. We each have kind of different expertise and different strengths that lean in really well, but we have a similar mindset as far as the way that we do things. So we ended up going to a in-person conference together, started chatting a lot more about what we wanted to do. And we recognized that we shared a lot of the same friends, or at least the same mentality in the people that we were
Mhm.
meeting and getting to know, and especially around our favorite people, right? Our favorite people, they just thought differently. They just did things differently. And it was really hard to settle in on what that difference was, because often when you look at marketing and segmentation and trying to figure out who your target audience is, it's
Mhm.
very demographic, right? It's what gender, what race, what interests, or what is the more, what's their age, right? All these different things that are very surface level in some ways, right? You can just look at it on a piece of paper and you can tell something about somebody. But for us, what we found was there were people of all races, of different genders, and of different interests and different ages, and there was just such a wide spectrum. It's like there's a lot of people that we really like, but there was one thing, and I'd say maybe two things really, that stood out. And one of them was they were going out and they were getting it done. They were
Mhm.
people of action. They went and they created, they started the business, they made the sales call, they stepped out and raised their hand and said, "Hey, I'm doing this," whatever way that meant. And that's how they got introduced to us. That's how we connected, right? Is they raised their hand in some way. They
Right.
got connected to somebody else and someone said, "Hey, you guys got to meet," or they commented on something, whatever, right? And so then they get connected, we get plugged in. And that was one piece. But I found that there were some people that I met that were really, really good at going out and getting it. But at the same time, I kind of got like an icky feeling. Like there was just something that
Yeah.
just like, I don't know, like we're not quite vibing. We're not quite on the same level as far as just the way that we operate. And I think the other piece to that puzzle was a growth mindset. People that were open to change, open to opportunity, that weren't just out for themselves, that weren't just trying to make a living and move on. So it was two pieces. It was people that were go-getters in a sense, right?
Mhm.
Action takers. And then it was people that are focused on growing, that enjoy that aspect of learning and care more about the journey necessarily than the destination.
Sure.
And so Ben and I kind of played with that idea, like, okay, who are these people? What makes them different? And the term go-getter came up, and I think if you look it up in a dictionary, it's like an aggressively enterprising person
Mhm.
is a definition. And for a lot of those people, they're great fits, but a lot of them, they're too aggressive or they're too enterprising in the sense of like, it just kind of comes off wrong.
Right.
Right. And so we were like, okay, but that growth mindset's super critical. That being open to connecting and giving was a key factor. So we're like, okay, why don't we make grow getters our thing, right? People that are growth minded, but also go getters. And so we created this networking group called GrowGetters Only. And we did kind of a test run, and it was a completely Zoom based networking. So people
Mhm.
come into a Zoom call, we have a couple speakers in, and the first speaker shares on some expertise and some wisdom, and then everyone gets to go into breakout rooms from there and discuss and learn and network as they go. And then we come back, hear another speaker, breakout again, network again. So
Mhm.
the point of that was to be really learning and connecting and finding interesting topics, letting this cool audience of people that we've started getting to know get to know each other in a
Right.
quicker and faster way, because stacking 15, 20, 30 minute Zoom calls, yeah, it could take a long time to
Sure.
filter through
Sure.
and find the right people to get to meet. And so to be able to create an event where everyone's coming together, coalescing around these ideas, was amazing. And then the third piece was allowing some of our friends to come in, or some of our acquaintances, or allowing some people that we've never met that we just
Mhm.
want to get to know better to come in and share their expertise, right?
Mhm.
Because for me, with a podcast, like I could pull some names, right? I can get some interesting people. But if I have a large audience, right? If you can tell someone, hey, I've got an audience of 50, 100, 200 people that are going to listen to what you're going to say,
Yeah.
a lot of people are interested in doing that. Bigger names than most people would expect. And so by doing that, it allows us to bring in high caliber people or elevate our friends within the group and
Mhm.
allow them to share and educate and help at the same time. So it really
Yeah.
is this beautiful medley of networking and learning all at the same time.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I was fortunate enough to attend the test one that I felt went really, really well. And what I love about it, is the fact that you can meet a lot of people in a short amount of time with some targeted conversation, right? So it's sort of like the speed dating of networking, speed
Hmm.
networking. But also you throw in the speaker in there, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a value add for anybody that would want to join. So I
Yeah.
will definitely be sharing like all of this information, like everything about you in the show notes, but the links into that. And I love the explanation around Grow Getters, because it the kind of the story behind the name I think is really, really awesome. And also the logo that you guys, the brand that you all came up with, that was even a shared experience. So
Mhm.
you put it over social and said, what do you think of the font? What do you think of the color? Of course, me being the sarcastic guy that I am, I really, really wanted just to say, hey, you should have Ben's face and your face on there, the
That was,
two icons of Brogan,
yeah.
right?
Then that was a thought too, right? Is maybe we make the G's kind of shaped slightly like our heads, or
Right.
silhouettes or something, and they may still be in the future
Yeah,
as the brand grows. But
sure.
that was been the fun piece, right? Is collaborating and just co-creating
Yeah,
something together, which is good and bad, because he and I are both kind of solopreneurs at the same time. We like doing
right.
stuff our own way, and so we both have strong opinions sometimes. But that for me has been actually a revelation too, because it's a safe place to have a
Sure.
strong opinion, right? As I can really push and advocate for my idea, and he's not going to get offended because I disagree with his
Mhm.
idea, because I'm disagreeing with the idea. I'm not disagreeing with him.
Right.
Right. He and I are in agreement that we want to serve these people well. We want to help people. We want to connect people. And if there's a side benefit for us, fantastic. Right. But at the end of the day, we're on that same mission. We're headed that same direction. And so that's been a powerful piece, is just being able to have that person that we can just kind of lean into and challenge in good ways.
Yeah. You bring up a really good question though. Like, how do you, as a creative person, work with another creative, and when you are bumping heads, right? Um, what are some methods that you and Ben use to kind of like come to a consensus?
Yeah. So for us, one is, if one of us has an extremely strong opinion and the other of us is just neutral or has a slight opinion, we tend to lean more towards a stronger opinion.
Sure.
So that's one piece. Another piece is, if we both have strong opinions on something, it's we talk about the pros and the cons. What are the benefits? What are the upside? What's the downside? What do I see? What do you see? Share on some of our experience, and then put it out there in such a way that if we're at an impasse, let's test it then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's bring it out there. Let's roll it out and see what happens. And so that's something that we're both open to, is just the idea of iterating in public, right? We're both creators. We both put stuff out there, right?
Mhm.
For for him, he's on his fifth or sixth rebrand of his podcast, right? For me, I've only been through one so far, but I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll rebrand again at some point. And so for both of us, though, we understand that things get better as we work at it. And so when we do come to an impasse, we're like, okay, well, let's pick one, let's work it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll just go with the other way.
Right. No, I love it. A very adult approach, simple approach
Yeah.
that I think gets overlooked too much in business, right?
Yeah.
Where we're just duking it out, or the boss, comes in and says, "We're doing it my way,"
Yeah.
right?
Another piece that's been helpful too is reaffirming each other. Is restating what the other person is saying to make sure that we're understanding it right. And
Communication.
at the same time, building up the basis of what they're believing, right?
Right.
So the reason that you're pushing this is because you want these people to network better, right? So
Right.
we're like one actual kind of come to blows moment, right? Not quite, but one that we both got relatively excited about was how we were going to set up after one of our speakers.
Mhm.
So the basic premise was we want people to network and discuss the conversation, because at the end of the day, networking can be super awkward and mega weird,
Mhm.
particularly for introverts or people that don't network all that often. Networking gets to be this weird, gross stigma, and they avoid it. And I think they suffer for it, right? They don't get
Mhm.
to meet all these fun and exciting people that are out there. And so I want to make sure that extroverts feel comfortable, but honestly, in a networking environment, extroverts feel comfortable relatively easily.
Yeah.
So making it comfortable for those more introverted people or those people that don't network as often was really critical. And so one thing that we disagreed on was how things shake up after the speaker's done talking. So
Mhm.
Ben was pushing for we open up breakout rooms and then people can choose to go into them. But the main room stays open as a forum for the speaker to keep talking and keep
Mhm.
sharing their ideas. For me, I felt like if we did that, most people, especially those that felt awkward networking, would go with the path of least resistance and just stay in that room and not really
Right.
network with anybody and just kind of keep absorbing. So we kind of kept batting that back and forth. And initially, I didn't even like the idea of the speaker continuing to do Q&A. But what we did is we kind of compromised. We came to a spot where like, okay, let's have to keep the speaker keep doing Q&A type stuff, but that speaker is going to leave the main room. They're going to pick their own breakout room. We're going to name it. We'll name it the speaker Q&A breakout, right? And the speaker's going to go to that breakout room. And people that love to just hear the speaker and just learn more and just ask a couple questions, they can go there and they can absorb from the guru, right?
Right.
And then the other people that want to go to breakout rooms and connect and talk about ideas, they can go into some of those other rooms. So it was a really sharp compromise that made both of our ideas even better.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love the process, So what I hear you saying is that you guys actively communicate and kind of talk back and forth, which I love. Not enough places do that, and partnerships often fail if you don't, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, oh, that's excellent, man. Sometimes I just want to be a fly on the wall in those conversations with you guys because, I always seem to be like 3 months behind the next Ben idea. And I'm like, it comes to me, and then Ben like launches it, and I'm like,
And you're
darn
like,
it.
oh man.
But he always says, and you're the same way, like, hey, man, do that. You just do it. He's like,
Do it.
5-minute Fridays. He's like, I don't care if you do 5-minute Fridays. And some people like, are like, I don't care if you do 5-minute Fridays because you won't be as good as me. But that is not either one of you, which
Right.
is what I absolutely love. So, Andrew, you're also a very family oriented man. You're very committed to your family and to your wife and to your kids. And we were just talking about your dad kind of off the air. And so I know you're close with a lot of members of your family, and I really admire that about you. There's been several conversations that we've had where you said, you know what? I think it's a good idea. I like the idea, but let me talk this through, right? Always kind of keeping people in check. As far as, what it takes for you to commit to something. So can you talk a little bit about that work-life balance and how you manage to do that?
For sure. And I like the idea of work-life balance. And I think where a lot of us run into trouble is we feel that balance needs to be equal, right? We
Hmm.
need to have the same of whatever it is. And trying to maintain an equal balance of anything is horrendously difficult. You look at people that are on balance beams, right? Their feet are constantly shaking and moving and adjusting. And I think what's important maybe more than balance, is harmony. Are things playing nice together? Are they
Right.
flowing? Is it smooth? Right? Because that's where ballerinas get graded. That is where people that are in a lot of performing arts get graded, is
Hmm.
how smooth was the flow of that transition? How
Sure.
did it look? How did it all come together? And so for the family side of things, it's very, very critical that I'm there, that I'm present when I'm home, because I tend to work anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day, sometimes a little more. And I know for me, it's easy to get caught up in helping and serving outside the home. I'm a giver by nature.
Hmm.
I like helping. And I spent a year or two of college being a yes man, and I said yes to every opportunity for the most part. I said no
Right.
to a few, but in general, it was like, you want to stay up all night? Yeah, let's go do it. You want to just do this? Yeah, let's go. And it was great. I met a ton of people, learned a lot, but I also learned that there's a lot of things that suffer when you say yes to everything. Because
Sure.
when I am saying yes to a lot, I understand that there's a no that comes
Hmm.
with that. If I say yes to a lot of commitments, I'm saying no to some family time. I'm saying no to extra sleep. I'm saying no to some other things that I put a high price on, that I have a lot of value in. And so for my wife and I, there's been plenty of conflicts that have come up because I've made rash decisions or rash commitments. And what I've learned is one of the easiest ways for me to set a boundary around something, for me to make sure that I'm not overcommitting,
Hmm.
is to not commit right away. It's so easy for me to get caught up in hype and excitement. Yeah, you probably see this, and Ben as well. We're excitable people. We get pumped. We're like, yeah, let's do it. Yes, yeah, yeah. Let's create it. Let's make it. Let's build it. And the hard part about that is not every opportunity is a good opportunity. And so, or not every, maybe many opportunities are good opportunities, but not every opportunity is the best opportunity. Not every
Hmm.
opportunity is going to bring us where we really, really, really want to go. And so what I've been doing is leaning on my wife as my help, in the
Hmm.
sense of, someone says, hey, this is a really great idea, or this really cool thing you could commit to, help out with this charity, come speak at this thing, come do this, go do that. Right. And I used to, yeah, exactly. Bye bye, family. Yeah. See ya. I used to say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially when I was single. Oh my goodness. Sure. Whatever. But it's very different. Very, very different now. And so instead of saying no, and instead of saying yes, I say that's a really interesting idea. I'm going to talk to my wife about it and see if that works.
Hmm.
And so that gives me the space to actually step back from that micro excitement, that little mini hype train that I get on, or the other person gets on, or to create a little distance from an awkward obligation someone's trying to push on me. And I get to step back, and I get to look at the whole picture. I get to bring my wife into it. And we're very fortunate. We have a little bit different personalities in certain ways. And so she sees things a little bit differently than I do. And she's got a more critical eye because, she's been wounded in certain ways from the way that I do stuff. Right. So she's very careful about the way that we go about doing
Right.
things. And so she's watching for some of my warning signs. At the same time, I'm watching for some of her warning signs as
Sure.
well. And so when I bring that to her, we're able to step back, look at the whole picture, and does this puzzle piece fit? And if it's bringing us closer to where we want to go, and really, it's easy to get excited about the destination, right?
Right.
But really, when it comes to harmony, it's about the journey. It's about that process. It's about that day to day. It's about living in that moment. And so in that harmony aspect, we need to understand that holistic picture. And does that small little piece fit? Is that
Right.
going to bring us closer, or is it a distraction? Could be a very good distraction. Could be a very nice thing. Could be a very wonderful thing. But is it a distraction from where we're really headed?
Yeah. Yeah. And what I also like is, first of all, you're super gracious in the proposal process, right? And the way that you brought it up, and why I asked this question is because I really do love your attention to that, to your family, and I like the harmony version rather than the work-life balance. And you've been very gracious to me and said yes to, like, I think 98% of the things I've ever asked you, including coming onto this podcast. But in the rare situation where you're not able to do something, you also don't throw it back on well, my wife says I can't do this and really want to, but you bring it back, and you say, hey, this isn't the best timing for me, and it's just I love it. So I needed to bring that up because I know other people are struggling with that, and I would imagine that some members of my audience are struggling with that. How do you
Yeah.
say no to? How do you become supportive without being like a complete no man to
Yeah.
everything, or woman?
So
So
what I shared on that was it was a very tactical piece, right? As far as just that exact question and methodology. But for those that want to do maybe a little bit deeper dive, one thing that helps has actually been some of the problems that I've caused, is actually looking at the issues that have come into our lives because of poor decisions that
sure.
I've made. And one commitment was, I really enjoy video games, and I have for a long, 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 long time.
Hmm.
And it's gotten to a point where with the kids that we have, the lifestyle that we have, video games just haven't really fit. There's just hasn't been space for it. It hasn't been right. And it took us a while to get there. And the
Right.
hardest piece for me, whether it's a video game or a cell phone or any type of screen or distraction, is when my daughter tries to get my attention and she has to physically shake me to get me to acknowledge her.
Hmm.
Taking that and actually just sitting in that,
Right.
right? Looking back and reflecting on that moment and being sad, being disappointed, being disgusted, being angry, being hurt, being alone, and really just stepping into all of those core emotions
Sure.
that we as people experience from our own personal woundings and all the fun woundings that we give to those around us. And really owning that. And once I was able to step into that and own that and recognize, like, man, I am doing my daughter a major disservice by looking at these glowing screens, whether it
Hmm.
was TV or games or my phone. And I recognize I need to make sure that I'm creating space for her to come and interact with me, and me to be able to go and interact with her. And
Yeah.
a lot of times those screens get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, as parents, we are experiencing that, like, obviously, with the screens with our own kids, right? And how often are they playing, and how immersed are they? I've been there personally with my own son, talking to him, and he's locked on the screen, right?
Yep.
Or he just remembered, I have to go to the bathroom, like he's in the middle of a game, and he's running as fast as he can. He's like, I gotta go. My favorite is I'm hungry. Like after he's off the game, then he realizes, wait, I haven't eaten. I'm hungry now. Right. So and you're like, as I make assumptions a little bit, but like your generation is really the first generation that like has had video games pretty much like all your lives, right? And so having that opposite of approach, right? And where the child can't get attention of the parent because they're on the screen, is a little bit of a different of a challenge, right?
Mhm.
That, I've had video games, pretty much all my life, but not to the extent where, I was on the start of that whole thing with like Nintendo
Right.
and everything. So yeah, but I mean, being able to step back and going back to that other comment that you made where, using your family or using your wife as say, hey, I need to go and speak with my wife about this. It also affords that opportunity for you to take a moment and assess everything, and not, like you said, make it an instant yes decision, right? Because it may very well be something you don't want to do at all. You just don't know how to say no,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah,
super awkward to say no to, especially if it's a
yeah,
good thing. It's hard to say no to good things. Let's all just acknowledge that. It's
sure,
hard to say no to good things, but it's important that you do,
right.
because that opens up the door for the best things.
Well, and I never want to say no to Andrew or Ben, so I have to take some
But
lessons here.
yeah,
Yeah.
feel free to, because some of our harebrained and crazy ideas may not fit right now.
Yeah, no, no, I can't see how that's possible though, because they're all awesome ideas. But um, yeah, no, you guys probably could come up with, hey Nick, jumping off this bridge without a line, it's an awesome idea.
It's
You should
gonna be
do it.
awesome.
Everybody's doing it. All right, let's go. You go first though. Let's see what happens.
I love it. No, that's so true though.
So
That is so true.
all right. Well, I think we're at the part of the episode where, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of share anything else that maybe I didn't talk about or touch on, and why you're thinking about maybe that statement. Something that I want to pull in from, like, I believe both of you and Ben do, is a couple questions that are sort of personal, and I have not done that on my shows before, but I do want to ask you some simple things, And so while you're thinking of that what else do you want to share kind of thing, what's your favorite color?
Favorite color, I would say red.
Red. All
Yeah.
right. So, and do you have a dream vehicle or car?
I was actually just thinking about this. I was stewing on this the other day. So I love fast cars just like the next person. When I was about 23, right before right before I got fired from my first job, I bought a BMW.
Hmm.
And oh man, it was fun. It was fast. It was sleek. It was smooth. Um, and it didn't. All it did was get me from point A to point B, just
Yeah.
a little bit more stylish. And that's been a process for me, is trying to understand what I actually want and what I've been conditioned to want because other people want it.
Hmm.
That, for those that can actually take that step in figuring that out, if you can do that work, it's going to radically change your life.
Yeah.
Because for me, I found that a lot of the things that I wanted were just things that other people wanted. And I
Hmm.
just wanted them because they wanted them. Right. And
Right.
so really stepping back and analyzing, what do I actually want? Another thing that's been helpful has been driving a piece of crap junker for 4 years. Because at the end of the day, man, it gets me where I need to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I've lived the BMW life. It's fun. It's flashy. It's beautiful. People love it. People are like, oh, it's so cool. Right. But no one's ever, actually, very few people comment on my car because there's nothing good to say about it. Right. But at that same time, it's giving me that space to say, what is a car? Right. What
Sure.
does it do? Right. For me, I don't need a car to show my status, right? I
Right.
don't need a car to display anything for me. I can do that on my own.
Hmm.
So for me, if I had a dream vehicle, is a very long answer to a short question.
That's
If I had
fine.
a dream vehicle, it would be probably one of those the green SUVs from Jurassic Park.
Oh,
So just
cool.
get an SUV, just do a cool little green wrap in it that looked all like a Jurassic Park vehicle. That to me would be pinnacle. That'd be
Awesome.
peak because it's unique, it's different, it's weird, it's cool, and those that resonate with it are going to be attracted to it. They're going to come right up, and we're going to talk about it, and it's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. It's almost like the DeLorean. Everybody has like,
Yes.
obsession with that. We have these guys in our town called the Kless Boys. They own a garage and gas station, and they have all these iconic cars like in their shop. So they have a DeLorean. They have like, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the the little buggy. They actually have Urkel's buggy car stuff. So just things like that. Those iconic, like weird cars. So you
Hmm.
should come down and visit us someday.
I love that.
Yeah. So, but no, I think that's a great answer. I don't care that was long. That's awesome. Like I'm in the same boat sort of. I've been driving a Prius C for like 7 years and it's like
Love it.
160 something thousand miles. I'm going to need a new car. And I'm like, I don't know what I want. And it's more of a need, right?
Hmm.
What do I need,
Right.
in my long travels? So that's awesome. All right. One more quick personal question and we'll get to that other one. What did you speaking of being and wanting something, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I would say there were two main things. One of them was Steve Irwin, or just some sort of
Crikey.
person. Crikey, right?
Right.
One of those nature type people,
Yeah.
either a zookeeper or a veterinarian, or somebody that just went
Sure.
and caught snakes and frogs for a living. So that was one of my first things that I was interested in, and another one was an astronaut. I loved the
Oh,
idea
awesome.
of the great unknown and going out there and going into space and doing all this crazy stuff. And so for me, so far, neither of those things have come true. I do think at some point I'll make it into space, but that'll probably be
Yeah.
when that becomes a little bit more financially affordable.
Sure.
But that for me, that's a bucket list item, right?
Yeah.
Is to do something unique.
Yeah.
And to me, that's fun. Is just being able to pursue interests, pursue passions, and be able to share on experiences that not a whole lot of other people have gotten to do or see or have. To me, that's a lot of fun.
And I
I
think that
will.
that's totally true. I think you'll get to space someday, and it's because of your networking. That's my prediction. You're a grow getter that's going to get into space.
I love
So,
that.
yeah. So, is there anything, man, that we haven't touched on? I mean, I could talk to you forever,
Thank you.
But is there anything else that you want to promote, talk about?
Oh man. So we covered a lot of ground today. And one of the things I always enjoy talking about is how important vulnerability is. We got a good opportunity to touch on that.
Sure.
But I just want to revisit that as kind of the capstone is for those listening, vulnerability to me is one of my superpowers, right? One of my main ones is energy, right? I bring that just flows right out of me. Vulnerability is one of those superpowers that like I have to like scrape and claw and work for. But at the same time, it's changed me more profoundly than just about anything else in my life. And so a lot of people see someone like me or like Nick or like Ben or someone else in our network that's out there doing it, that's out there creating, that's out there, they're being big, right? They're doing something bigger than just themselves. And a lot of people think to themselves, well, I could never be that creative. I could never do that. I could never do my own business. I could never build that. And I'd recommend a little bit of caution in that
Mm-hmm.
line of thinking because for me, about 9 years ago now, 10 years ago, no, it's about 9 years ago. I was in a very, very dark place, extremely dark place. And if you had showed me a flash forward to my future where I am right now, I don't know if I would have believed it. I don't know if I would have believed it because back then that just wasn't, it wasn't possible for me. That wasn't in the realm of opportunity that I had. But because I learned about vulnerability, because I learned about how to share and how to grow in that sense, I was able to connect so much
Mm-hmm.
better. I was able to learn so much more because in order to be, I mean, in order to be a good learner, in order to be a person that grows and finds more success and finds deeper relationship, that level of vulnerability allows that in, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to receive something into your hand when you have a closed fist, right? When
Mm-hmm.
you're protecting what you have, when you're defending, when you're small, when you're keeping it in, right? It's only by opening up those hands. It's only by opening up your heart. It's only by being vulnerable and open and sharing and just creating and being comfortable with being bad. My first couple podcast episodes, God bless the people that came on early in my show. They were great. And I had this like long list of questions. And I was just question. Like there was no conversation. There was no connection. There was no pulling ideas apart. It was just this like staccato shotgun fire of here's what we're going through. And one of the people that I had on my show, she was also super nervous about coming on and wonderful lady, but our conversation was 15 minutes because I ran out of questions. And it was a fantastic topic. It was super
Yeah.
interesting. It was amazing. But like because I was just so tied up in how we were going to do it, I wasn't ready to kind of flow and move and weave with it.
Yeah.
And so those first shows are in a sense this reminder of how far my show has come now.
Sure.
And I hope that in the next year, right? I've only been doing podcasting for a year. I hope in a year I can look back at the shows that I do now and say, oh boy, like, oof, yikes, I can't believe I was doing that. And I don't know what that is. That's the
Yeah.
hardest part is you don't know what that thing is right now, right?
Sure.
Until you get to a little bit further forward. So understand that you can look back and be excited about the changes you've gone through. But the only way to do that is to be open, be vulnerable, iterate, create, and just put it out there.
Right. Right. And I was listening to another podcast, and you just bring this up, and it's about Betty White and her life. Amazing woman, amazing person, and he was focusing on like a part of her life where reporters were asking her questions about, do you think that you did a disservice to women in taking on roles in the 40s and 50s on TV as a housewife? Paying those stereotypical things, and she was upset. And the main point was, when you go back and you look at something through a lens like of the 90s, right? You're in the 90s. It's a total different way of thinking. You can't judge the societal values of the 40s and 50s through a 90s lens. But what I like about what you're saying is going back and looking at what you did and can't believe, oh my gosh, I can't believe Nick wore that shirt that was so 70s or whatever. But appreciating it for what it is. And I will say, Andrew, I appreciate you for everything you are right now. And I know I'm going to appreciate you even more for what you're going to be in the future. Because you are the epitome of a grow getter, right? You are that person that people are drawn to, and just a great, terrific generosity in you and genuineness to the way you treat people. So thanks for being on the show, and thanks for being a part of my network and someone that I know I can go to. And I urge everyone in my audience to connect with Andrew and make sure that you become a grow getter, because he'll show you the way. You might have to ask his wife first, but he'll show you the way.
Hey, honey, do I have time for a meeting? I love it, Nick. And I don't want to make sure I reciprocate that, because that was one of the nicest things I've gotten to hear recently. And I used to just thank you and move on, but I've been working at trying to let my guard down and let people's words actually come through, right? Let the sentiment, let the real meaning, let the real truth of what they're saying really connect and really hit. And so for me, Nick, that's very powerful what you just shared, and I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that I've gotten to know you. You are a good friend. You're a champion for so many, because you're a lot like me in the sense of you work hard at including people. You work hard at making space and opportunity for those who might not have it. And whether it's through your podcast, through your networking, or through your job seeking groups, or whatever it is that you're doing, I always see that kindness and that genuineness sticking out. So for those listening to the show, stick around, because Nick's only going to get better at it, and he's going to keep sharing, and he's going to keep giving, and this is a fantastic place to be.
Thank you so much. And you know what? If I was going to follow suit and do the same thing back, we could be here forever.
We'd be here all day.
So, well, thank you so much, Andrew, and I will definitely see you in the networks.
Sounds great.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific too, and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.